Alrighty, welcome to the After Hours of TC Restani, the podcast. I am your host, TC Restani, emanating from the palatial podcast penthouse, and I am honored to have on the phone my longtime close personal friend, the one and the only Whitney Wickham. What's going on, Whitney?
Not much. How are you, TC?
I'm fantastic now that I'm talking to you. You and I are very close friends. We chat all the time. We text all the time. But we don't talk on the phone that often. And this is kind of a rare occasion that we're chatting one-on-one over my bell.
It is indeed. It's such a pleasure.
Obviously it is. And speaking of pleasure, the topic of our discussion tonight is Reiki, healing, and all the fundamentals that go with it. So let me give you a little backstory here. Whitney Wickham is, like I said, is a longtime close personal friend of mine. Our paths crossed back in 2016 when you were doing the cosplay thing. You were obviously cosplaying Rey from The Force Awakens, and me being a huge Star Wars fan, I just had to make contact with someone who I think is actually better at Rey than Daisy Ridley, but that's just my opinion. But you are far more than just a cosplayer. You do so many things, and if people follow you on your Twitter at Whitney Wickham, they'll know what I'm talking about. But all of a sudden, you have been branching out in the world of spiritual healing. So why don't you give us the 411 on what Whitney Wickham now does at rayoflight-healing.com.
I would be happy to. Thank you so much for asking. You know, it's funny because Reiki is a lot like using the Force. And so it's really interesting how I went from being a cosplayer, especially of the Star Wars fandom, into doing spiritual healing. And we actually see in the newest installment of Star Wars, Rey's actually using Reiki when she's healing these different, like the serpent in the caves, and when she actually heals Kylo Ren, and when Kylo Ren heals her back, that's all Reiki. It's a little bit fantasized, obviously. I can't close wounds the way that they do, but I am using an energy that comes from source, is what we call it, or spirit, and from within ourselves. And anybody can actually do Reiki healing, but we do focus on using energy in order to send the most potent form of healing from within ourselves and from within the energetic source, the Force that surrounds us all.
Now, you don't have to be spiritual or religious to do Reiki. Is that true?
Absolutely. Anybody can do it. You can be just interested in science even. It's very scientifically proven that Reiki works. We have lots of hospitals and different practitioners that are using Reiki in hospitals today, and nursing homes, and all over the place they're using this technique. And it's really, there's different forms of energy healing as well. There's also theta healing, and my special brand is actually Kemetic, coming from the ancient Egyptian belief system. And so my Reiki healing that I do specifically kind of goes into a more religious type of healing, but you don't have to be religious or spiritual to receive Reiki or to practice it.
Now, where was Reiki actually discovered? I mean, I have known nothing about Reiki. That's why I'm talking to you, the greatest Reiki master of all time. Give us the 411, the history of Reiki and how it made its way into pop culture.
Sure. Well, Reiki is a Japanese word, and it's a Japanese technique. And so it's a very specified form of energy healing. There's modules that you have to learn in different steps. So you go from level 1 to 2 to 3, and teaching, and then mastering. So you have the ability to then teach others. And through the New Age movement in the United States, these teachings came over from Japan, and they incorporated themselves into the New Age movement. So there was a little bit of a push and pull in our American society because, as we all know, the New Age movement kind of got a little woo-woo in some areas. And so a lot of people didn't put stock into this at all. But as we saw with acupressure and acupuncture, those methodologies were working. So what originally was something that the US government and the FDA were saying, no, this doesn't work. We can't use this. This is not legal. This is snake oil. Suddenly became, oh my gosh, this actually works. Now Reiki is now on the tail end of that, and we're noticing that a lot of scientists and even the CIA are starting to prove that this type of technique is actually valid.
Well, the CIA have a lot of things up their sleeve they're not telling anybody about. Reiki, of course, has probably been around for hundreds of thousands of years. And would that be categorized as a holistic medicine?
Yes, it is a holistic medicine. Some people use the word therapy. Technically, that's not legal to use that word or terminology, but it is a form of holistic healing. Yes.
Now, the first time I heard of holistic medicine was in the 1999 movie Man on the Moon, which was a documentary about Andy Kaufman's life, and he had tried to get rid of his cancer multiple ways, and I remember them putting crystals all over his body. Is that something that you agree with, or was that just movie fantasy?
No, absolutely. We use crystals and Reiki all the time. I actually am holding in my hand right now a bunch of Reiki crystals that are chakra crystals that you put on different pinpoints of your body. Chakras are the energy systems that run up through your entire system, your body, basically a straight line. And those energies go from the feet up through the head. We call it the crown chakra. And they circulate around sort of an infinity symbol on the left and right sides and in the front, basically all around you, creating sort of a sphere. And so we use crystals to harness energies and sort of rewire.
And how long have you, Whitney Wickham, been involved in holistic medicine?
Believe it or not, I've been doing this for a long time. I wasn't actually certified until 2 years ago, but I began my journey in holistic healing back when I just graduated high school. I had a theater teacher who was a holistic healer on the side. He was a shaman and he was a Reiki healer. And one day he pulled me aside and he goes, "You're a psychic." And I said, "Yes, I am." And from that point on, we just did sort of private lessons in his back office, and he taught me how to harness energies and work with them. And over the years, I just sort of practiced on my own, learning how to feel different energies and work on the craft. And then one day I was like, you know what? I'm diving in full fledged. Let's do this. Ray sort of gave me that inspiration. I was like, she's a force wielder, energy healing, sort of force wielding. Let's take this cosplay to like the ultimate. Let's just become a force wielder in real.
And that's how it happened. Now, now, have you actually, now family members, do they come to you for advice and saying, Whitney, I got a back pain here, or I got, a little bouts of depression and whatnot. Do they come to you for advice and help?
They do all the time. My 7-year-old's a little bit addicted. He'll come to me for the littlest thing. I got a paper cut. I stubbed my toe. I have a headache. Everything's got to be Reiki healed. My 3-year-old doesn't want it at all. He will push my hands away and say no Reiki. The rest of my family is pretty open to it, but they're not always asking me because they want me to be available for my clientele, but I'm always willing to work. I mean, if somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, I need Reiki," I'm like, all right, I'll be the first one to jump forward and say, "I'll do it."
Now, are there any other holistic healers in your family? Is it passed down from generation, or are you the first?
No, I am, as far as I know, I am the first one in my family.
Now, Reiki actually means physically touching somebody, correct?
Yes, it does. But you can do distance Reiki as well. And a lot of my clients are distance Reiki clients. Again, with the Kemetic background, I have ways of using my own spiritual guides to tap into a person's energy, no matter time, distance, space. So what's really interesting is that science actually tells us that once atoms sort of connect, when they do this, if you put one atom on one side of the universe and another atom on the other side of the universe, and you change the spin on one atom, instantaneously, no matter time, distance, space, the other atom will change directly with the other one. It's like this weird magnetic pull, and it just happens immediately. And so that's what I do. I can tap into somebody's energy and just start moving that energy around, even though they're not with me. So I don't even have to lay my hands on you.
Now, say theoretically speaking, you're on a New York City subway train and you see a guy across the aisle from you that you have no idea who he is. Can you actually sense that he needs Reiki, and can you offer this Reiki without his permission?
Great question. So the rules of Reiki, what we do when we become a master, or actually any type of practitioner, whether you're level 1 or master level, we take an oath that says that we are not allowed to do any practicing on anybody unless the person explicitly gives permission or their caregiver does so. So like, let's say somebody ends up in a coma and that person can't speak for themselves. Whoever is their caregiver can say, "Can you do Reiki for this person?" And then we have permission to do so. Now, theoretically, I could tap into somebody's energy without their permission, but this sort of falls under a taboo of almost black magic. anything that goes against somebody else's will. See, we're moving energy, and moving energy is witchcraft no matter what, right? So when you're moving somebody else's energy without their permission, it falls under black magic, and that brings about karmic baggage, and you take that with you into your next life. At least that's what I believe.
Now, here's a weird question that just came into my mind. If someone did do that, could someone have grounds to sue a Reiki person?
I mean, I don't see why not. It might be a very interesting case in court.
I mean, how do you prove it?
That's a great question. I mean, how do you prove a hoodoo practitioner doing a voodoo doll against you, or a sour jar, or any of these other black magic instances? I've had that stuff happen to me. I had a woman last year who was upset with me because I wouldn't write her book for free. True story. And she sent a demon after me, and I had an energy bleed, and I was really sick for like a month, and I had to do what's called a return to sender spell. And so I sent everything back to her, and I was like, I have no proof. The only proof that I have is that this thing told me that she was the one who sent it. And like, what am I going to do? Walk into a lawyer's office and be like, so this demon came to me and he told me that this lady in Australia is the one who sent this thing to me. They would laugh me out of there. So a lot of this stuff, we just sort of have to deal with it on our own because we sound crazy when we talk about it to the normal society.
And if you wanted to get me even more crazy, you could play the Elvis song, Return to Sender, Address Unknown.
That's about right.
Unbelievable. Now, getting back to being a psychic, when was the first psychic ability that you had? Was it as a child saying, I shouldn't cross the street because a giant bus is going to come down and run me over?
My first memory is actually with a ghost.
Really?
I was about 2 years old. My mom didn't know what to think. I used to talk to ghosts in our house all the time. And it got to the point where when I became a teenager and we moved into a haunted house and I saw a specter there, and she finally said, "This is enough. There must be something wrong with you. You're probably schizophrenic," because it'd been going on for 16 years. And so she actually medicated me.
Now, did you actually become friends with this ghost?
No. The ghosts that tend to come to me are looking for passage to the other side. So if I'm not giving them passage, they sort of become ornery with me. And being a young kid, I didn't know how to do any of that. I just thought that what I was seeing was there and real. I thought everybody else saw it. Who are you talking to? Oh, the man in the corner.
So,
there's no man in the corner. Who are you talking to? What do you mean? Oh, his name's Greg.
So kind of in a way, you were kind of like in Ghostbusters, the gatekeeper to get these people to the other side.
In a way, I am a beacon. So if I do what's called office hours with these entities, I close off my home, and when it is office hours, I will let down the guard, and then so many can come through, and I'll just send them to the other side, and then I put my gate back up.
Now, how do you bill these people?
I don't. It's all pro bono.
Now, getting on a serious side here, my mother just passed away a couple months ago, and I've never actually seen a ghost or felt any presence of people that have passed. But since my mother has passed away, I have felt her presence. I've heard things, and can you give me the 411 on what am I experiencing?
So more than likely what you're experiencing is your mother doesn't really want to fully cross over. She's probably concerned about you and how things are going to go without her being there. And it's just a little bit difficult for her to go over to the other side. The other thing is that some spirits really are afraid to go. And I mean, who wouldn't be? Change is nerve-wracking, right? And so sometimes they hang around because they have unfinished business or they're concerned about their loved ones. Other times they don't go because they're like, well, I don't know where I'm going. And so there's that fear aspect. If we're afraid in our life, we'll be afraid going into the next life. But I think with your mother, I think it's more of,
my mother was
hanging around to see how you're doing.
My mother was a tough old woman, and she had strong faith as a Catholic. There were more pictures of Jesus in the house than there was of me. So when she closed her eyes on this mortal coil, I would have thought that she would jump at the chance to go to the pearly gates and, hang out with God and Jesus and all that other stuff. But I guess I trumped God and Jesus. She wanted to hang around and hang with me.
I think you did. Now,
But
to be clear, not every Reiki practitioner is a psychic.
okay.
It's not something that goes hand in hand because, like I said, anybody can be a Reiki healer and anybody can learn to hone in on psychic abilities. But those of us that are sort of born with it innately, where it's just a natural talent, our third eye is already open, like too much to the point where we're like seeing things that we maybe shouldn't be seeing. That isn't necessarily something that just happens. You don't learn Reiki and learn psychic ability at the same time from those classes.
I believe that I have a little bit of psychic powers in me. Ever since I was a young kid, I could always see things before they happened or feel things before they happen or numbers pop in. You know, I see numbers and things automatically go into my head saying, oh, this means something. Well, you and I have been really close friends for the last 4 years. And you know my favorite movie of all time is Back to the Future, correct?
Right.
All right. I probably talked about that more than I talked about anything else in my entire life. This year, 2020 marks the 35th anniversary of the movie that came out in 1985. So since November, they've been doing this campaign, 35, 85, with the 50th anniversary of the movie. And it hit me saying, this means something. And I didn't figure it out until after my mother passed away. My mother was born in 1935, and she passed away when she was 85 years old. 85, 85. And it was just
oh my God,
staring at me the entire time. And I kind of knew what that meant, something was significant. And then when she passed, I put two and two together, and I'm like, numbers always seem to pop up certain places, and they have a relevant meaning to me. May not mean anything to anybody else, but I can kind of deal with that. And I don't know what kind of power that is.
No, that's 100% spirit speaking to you. So I had a similar situation both with my grandmother and my grandfather. My mother was standing at a bakery and the number that she grabbed was 89. This next day she went to the salon, 89. I'm not kidding you. The next day her father passed away, at 8:09 in the morning, and we took Highway 89 to his funeral, and he died at the age of 89. The next year, the same thing happened with her mother, 89 again.
Or they could be celebrating the year that I graduated high school.
Now, don't date yourself.
Hey, what we're talking about here? We're talking about all things holistic medicine here at my longtime close personal friend, Whitney Wickham. You can follow her on Twitter at Whitney Wickham and visit her awesome website, which is rayoflight-healing.com.
Absolutely. And you can also find me at my normal website that's just me, whitneywickham.com. That's getting a total revamp because I'm actually diving into what we call ethereal, sexual, and sensual healing, which is part of Reiki healing.
That's what I wanted to talk about here. We teased about this early in the week, and I got a lot of good responses saying that you're going to be talking to Whitney Wickham about sexual healing. And
Heck yes.
And I said, absolutely. I'm TC Restani, and Whitney Wickham, I'm not going to embarrass you, is very easy on the eyes. And
thank you.
But as you schooled me before we did this, the rayoflight-healing.com is not a porno site, ladies and gentlemen, okay? I mean, you're not going to find, ghouls and goblins doing the nasty on her website. Sexual healing is, give us the 411. Before we do that, the most erogenous zone isn't down in your nether region. It's in your brain.
That is true. And we all have dirty thoughts all the time. And anybody saying that they don't is a liar, or they aren't in tune with themselves. I'm going to put that out there right now. We all have dirty thoughts. We all think about sex because everything in this world and the universe is created through some sort of form of sex. Intercourse is required. Even the life-death cycle is intercourse. It's intercourse with spirit and earth.
Well, I saw someone do that with a pie once in a movie, but I never saw anybody do that with dirt. But let's get on the big topic here. We're talking about ethereal sexual healing. All right. I am a person walking into rayoflight-healing.com for the first time, and I know nothing about ethereal sexual healing. This is where you are going to school the world, my friend. The floor is yours.
So ethereal sexual healing is my own term. I can't even say my own term. Here I am getting all tongue-tied. Well, it is my own term Some people call it cosmic sexuality. Some people call it sacred sexuality. It's really been called sacred sexuality since the beginning of humanity's conception of understanding of spirit and body. So what I work with is your mind, body, and spirit all in one. So here's what's really cool about this is that we can have a physical orgasm simply by thinking. They call it a mental orgasm. It's totally possible. I mean, if you're watching pornography and you start to feel arousal, you can get off simply by watching something from a visual or hearing something. It just depends on how aroused you are, right? And that physical sensation feels good. It releases all sorts of hormones, including oxytocin and serotonin, which make us feel happy, so we want to do it again. But what we are missing is that you can have what's called a spiritual orgasm. So your magnetic system, your chakras that we talked about earlier, these lovely energy systems that run through your body, that can orgasm as well. So then it's like having 2 orgasms at the same time.
Double money shot.
Double money shot. And when this happens, this connection is so strong that you'll never want to go back to something else again. But it also requires our body and our minds to be in the same sort of sex experience, if you will. We have to be present in both spirit and body at the same time. And that's what I work with. I also work through traumas, past life experiences. So if you've got baggage from a past life, I help work through those situations so that you can live in the present. And people that have not had exactly the best sexual experience, I help those people move forward too, so that they can actually be the best partners, not only for themselves, but for their partner.
Unbelievable down there. Now, how does someone actually know if they had a bad past life experience? I mean, how do you recall that?
That's when we go into past life regression therapy. There are lots of people that do past life regression therapy. I usually do mine through sort of a guided meditation, and that brings up memories that are locked far deep within our subconscious. Sometimes they come up as actual pictures, or they'll come up as feelings, or you might hear words, or you'll have all of it at the same time. Now, when I've done my past life experience regressions, I've had actual full-fledged memories with conversations in different languages that I somehow understood what was going on. And it's a really immersive moment, but it's very spiritually connected. So when we bring up these past life experiences, we're able then to talk about them, sort of figure out what the trigger is, what's going on, why are we holding on to this baggage, why are we harboring this in our life? And those things create patterns, negative patterns that we relive over and over and over again in the current life, because it's time for us to start letting those go. And once we let them go, we're able to move forward in this life and be present exactly where we're at right now.
Now, how many past lives will you say that you've had?
Oh, goodness. Let's say, I don't know how many. To remember them all would be a lot. Probably about 5,000, 7,000 years worth of lives.
Now, here's a question. Now, are they all human past lives? I mean, could you come back as an animal?
I have never personally come back as an animal, but I do know somebody who has had a past life regression and they remembered themselves as a dog.
Now, do you think this takes place on other planets? Because we all know there's life on other worlds out there. Anybody who doesn't believe that is a complete moron.
Absolutely.
So do you think
energy is energy.
So do you think like ETs are having like past life experience where they may come back, as a human at one point in time and they have no idea what a human being is?
Definitely. You might see the term starseed thrown around a lot. These are beings, these are energies that have reincarnated here on Earth, but their soul originates from a different planetary system. That is absolutely normal. I know that sounds weird to everybody else. Personally, I'm a twin flame. So a twin flame is a soul that's been split in two.
Okay.
And so my other half is another person, and we're sort of like the mirror of each other.
Kind of like that Star Trek episode when they went to that alternate dimension.
Yeah. Or the way that I like to describe it is, honestly, it's a dyad. If you want to go Star Wars, it's a dyad.
There you go.
So.
And the dyad brought down.
Dyad.
And the dyad brought down the Emperor.
Exactly.
Unbelievable. Now, Now, you offer these Reiki courses and sexual healing courses on your website, rayoflight-healing.com. Now, I mean, some people may be embarrassed and say, you know, I have a problem in that area. I mean, you're totally legit, and you are extremely, extremely kind and considerate to people's feelings. But, I mean, how would one actually go about contacting you and saying, hey, I got a problem going on here?
Sure. Reach out to me on social media or send me a message through one of my websites, and I will be happy to discuss these things with you. There's no shame as far as I'm concerned. I treat these really like a patient confidentiality situation. I'm not going to go tell your information to anybody. This is something that you share with me, and I respect that energy is being given and being trusted with me. So it's very important that the people that I encounter are not only trusting and open, but they understand that I'm not going to hurt them in any way, and that all I want for them is to live their best experience. So everything that they need to say, I will be there for and happy to help with.
And we got to make this perfectly clear, because some people may misinterpret what you're offering. This isn't a sex line or anything like that. You're not going to, talk dirty to them on the other end of the phone or in an email or anything like that. I just had to get this out there because there are psychos and weirdos out there that are probably could be interpreting this the wrong way.
Well, I mean, I understand, because the terminology is something that's hard to get away from. And that's why I created my own term, ethereal, sexual, and sensual healing. Because at the end of the day, these terms, it sounds like the way that it sounds. I'm not going to pretend like, oh, well, there's no way to misinterpret this. 100% I understand that. But yes, I am not an energetic prostitute. I am not there to just help somebody get off. Now, what I will specify, this is very important. It is completely normal to feel arousal in the sessions that I have. And that arousal comes from blockages being moved. It's nothing that I'm doing specifically to that person. It's just the way that energy is being chosen to be used in their bodily system. So I can completely understand why, when somebody's had an amazing experience, that they're like, oh, wow, definitely go use her. I had the most amazing orgasm I've ever had. It happens. It does not necessarily mean that that is an exclusive situation. And it doesn't mean that the next time that you come back, it'll be the same thing. It just really depends on how your energy blockages are moving and how your energy decides to work through your system.
Now, give us the 411 on energy blockages. I had blockages in my arteries before, and they fixed that with stents. So you like a spiritual stent?
Yes, in a way I am. Here's the issue with what I do versus what you got. So a stent keeps everything flowing regardless until a new stent has to be put in, right? An energy blockage removal only lasts so long as the person does the upkeep. If the person is not continuing to do upkeep on their trauma or the issues that they've been working with, let's say, for instance, your throat chakra. It's where we speak from, but it's also where a lot of healing comes from. And so that sits right at your thyroid gland. And when a person is, let's say, dealing with a blockage that they don't know their own voice, they don't speak up for themselves, they're very much in solitude a lot of the time. And they're like, you know what? I need to speak my truth. I need to say these things. If I go in and I remove that blockage, and they don't continue practicing speaking their truth, that blockage will just return.
I agree 100%. It's just like when I had my heart surgery and they opened up my arteries and they said, if you don't change your diet and your way of living and whatnot, you're going to be back here at doing this all over again. So you have to stay with it, stick with it, and believe in it. Because if you believe in it, you're going to make things happen. Because
exactly,
just like the book The Secret says, if you think it, you can imagine it, and the universe will pay up.
I'm so glad that you mentioned The Secret, because that actually has a lot to do with what I work with as well. Because when we do sexual healing, we also work on manifestation. One of the big things that I teach students and teach my clientele is how to use their orgasm to manifest their reality. So it's like taking The Secret, this idea of the law of attraction, and putting it tenfold, because the orgasm is one of the most explosive energies in the universe. Okay. In fact, it's stated by a lot of religious backgrounds including the Kemetic, which is where my belief system lies, is that the universe was created through ejaculation.
The Big Bang.
So yeah, exactly. The Big Bang was basically a big ejaculation from God. So if we're looking at it from that point of view, when we use our orgasm as a way to think about what it is that we are trying to manifest, it's like harnessing that energy in sort of like a little force field and just shooting it out into the universe and going, listen to what I want. And the universe has really no choice but to listen to it.
So when you're mixing up a batch thinking of whoever your favorite adult entertainer is, you're actually helping the universe.
You can be, so long as you're thinking good things. But I believe most of us, at least until I learned how to use this technique, I didn't really think about anything when I was having an orgasm. So, I was kind of blank-minded. And I've asked around a lot of my clientele, like, what do you think about when you're ejaculating or when you're having an orgasm? What are you thinking about? And a lot of them give me this blank stare, like, what, you think something? And I'm like, yeah, you should be. Why are you not using this amazing force of energy that is coming out of you? I mean, like, why are you not doing, like, if you could sneeze yourself across the Grand Canyon to avoid a pack of wolves, wouldn't you use that propellant, to just jolt yourself across the canyon? I would. And that's basically the same thing with ejaculation and orgasm. Use it to get you where you want in your life as a manifestation technique.
Unbelievable. Now, I'm going to throw this out there to all the listening audience out there. The next time you have let's use the word, the orgasm out there, write down what you're actually thinking of at that second when you, recover from your pleasure. And I'm going to do that the next time and see, hopefully it's not something weird. Like, I'm thinking about like pancakes or something, or, just something odd. I mean, but you are like in a euphoric state. So God only knows where your mind's going to go at that moment.
I'd like to start a hashtag if that's okay.
Go right ahead.
Thoughts at orgasm. I want to know. I want to know what people are thinking about when they're having this moment. So hashtag thoughts at orgasm.
So when everybody is tweeting Whitney Wickham out there, at Whitney Wickham, hashtag thoughts at orgasm. And I mean everybody does it. I mean, it's every animal, everything on this world has an orgasm in some way or another, right?
Right. And why should we be shy about it? Why should we be shy about our bodies? I mean, our energy is driven through this desire for sexual activity, to procreate, to continue the life cycle. And again, beyond that, even through, I won't go too deep into this because this is a whole other podcast, but as we are having these ethereal experiences in our spirit and our magnetic body, we're actually transmuting energy. So things that we experience, we're letting that out into the universe. Everything negative that we experience, and I teach this, is to bring that up and send it out into the universe so that it can be reharnessed and turned into something positive. It's basically eradicating negativity.
Now, let's be honest. I mean, if you believe in a God or a higher power, those people invented us, correct? And they invented the orgasm. And you find it coincidence when you're actually at the moment of climax, you scream out God's name.
You do. I mean, he's probably like, what? What do you want? What do you need right now?
Well, he invented it, and he's probably like some sick joke that he did with maybe up there with his engineers of building human beings. I'm going to single them out. You know what? When they're ready to pop their morning glory and whatnot, they're going to call my name. I'm going to put my name out there at the most vulnerable moment when they have the utmost when their pistons are all firing at the same time. We're going to have God out there. That's how God is going to get his message across, because I know I do, and I know other people do, and I've watched tons of movies that people are doing in it, and they all do the same thing or say the same thing.
Better than yelling out your ex's name. I mean,
well, that's just sick.
Maybe in trouble, right?
Maybe that
At
works
least that way. If your partner's an atheist, the worst that they could say is, I don't really believe in that. But if you yell out your ex's name, you're headed for hot water.
You are headed for hot water down there. Unbelievable. Now, here's one thing I just thought about right now in my head. Has there ever been, do you know, because you are the expert in this, has there ever been a mating of a flesh and blood human being and a spirit?
Okay, so interestingly enough, there was a time, and again, this is what I believe. There was a time before, when we, in more primitive time, where we had the ability to harness better magic. There's stories. Look at Isis bringing back Osiris from the dead, and she conceived Horus out of his dead phallus. I mean, he was a zombie essentially, and here they are conceiving this wonder child. If you look at Zeus and his conception of Hercules, I believe these stories to be rooted in some sort of mythological truth, whether or not it's completely what was said. But there is something practiced in some sects of witchcraft that's called godwiving. It's not something that I would suggest to the early workers. If you're new, don't just jump into godwiving. That's not safe. But there are people who will claim to invoke the spirit of their patrons, which means the gods that they worship, and they might encounter sort of ethereal sexual experiences with said patron.
Like, this is totally opposite from the Immaculate Conception, because Mary had no idea, what was going on. All of a sudden, she became pregnant with Jesus. There was no mating. She did not meet God at a bar as a ghost and whatnot. It was just something that just happened, the way God wanted it to be, if you believe in that sort of thing. But I'm actually saying, like, a physical, say, like, if I'm just using this as an example, my uncle was a huge fan of Marilyn Monroe. Now, if he could conjure up the spirit of Marilyn Monroe and he wanted to bang her, could that happen?
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, that falls under the same concept of godwiving. They call it invoking a spirit. Again, you've got to be careful when you're playing with those types of things, because spirits don't fall under the same rule of regulation that humans do. Karmically, if we lie to somebody, that creates karmic baggage and tethers that we then have to deal with at a later time. So we're held accountable for that. When you're in the spirit realm, especially if you're caught in sort of what I like to call the in-between, or what Catholics call the purgatory, if you will. It's sort of like the fourth dimension. You're caught between time and space. That's why when people see spirits, they say that they look off, right? You can see through them. They have like this eerie presence. That's because their vibration is higher but dissonant to ours. It sort of rubs us the wrong way. So when they're caught in this fourth dimension, they have the ability to move things. They can touch us. They can do all sorts of things. Like, to say that a spirit isn't able to have sexual relations with a human is erroneous, because if they can grab your arm, they can grab your boob. Yeah, I mean, let's just be honest. I find it really sad when parents are like, "Oh, spirits can't hurt you." Yes, they can, and they can lie. And so it's very important that when you're working in spirit like that, invoking the spirit of somebody else that you are wanting to have a relationship with, it's important to know who it is that you're working with. Are they being truthful to you? And there's a whole ritualistic thing that goes behind doing this type of ritual.
We're talking to Whitney Wickham here, my longtime close personal friend. She's a Reiki master, and one of her specialties is ethereal sexual healing. And you can find her on her website, which is rayoflight-healing.com, or you can follow her on Twitter at Whitney Wickham. Now, one of the questions I have for you is, now you do all the spiritual stuff, healing and right, and stuff like that. But I remember on an episode of Shameless, which is one of my favorite shows, one of the characters on the show, Lip, had a lot of trauma in his life after a breakup, and he saw a Reiki master, and she did something with his foot, and he got his heart-on back.
Yeah.
Is that something that you offer? I mean, obviously, on your website. I'm being serious.
In ways. I mean, really what happened to his character was he ended up having a blockage in what is called his sacral chakra, and it connected to his root chakra. And so what she had done is she touched him on the bottom of his foot, which leads up through your system. So when we do Reiki, we go either from the top at the head and work our way down different centers on the body, or we work our way up from the feet. And so when she touched his feet, she sent energy up through the root chakra, up into the sacral chakra, and released that blockage. And so that's why he was able to have an erection again. Now, like I said before, if he wasn't maintaining the work that she had done, he'll end up back in the same situation as he was before. But yes, I can help with erectile dysfunction. I can help women with their inability to have an orgasm. I mean, that happens more often than not. Unfortunately, most women don't even know what an orgasm is.
That's a sin.
It is a sin. It is a sin. Most women don't even orgasm from their vagina. They orgasm from their labia. So I guess I should say their clitoris is where they orgasm from for the most part. So it's interesting.
And for you simpletons out there, that's the little man in the boat, okay?
Yeah, it's really important for women when they're having these experiences with ethereal sexual healing to finally connect to their vagina, their yoni, as we call it, in a more intimate manner. And a lot of women don't even understand how their entire body functions, let alone their reproductive organs. So that's something that we work with as well. And it creates that connection to who they are as part of this life cycle.
Now, if someone actually out there who is really serious about this, and I'm dead serious about this, Whitney Wickham, my longtime close personal friend, really knows her stuff about this problem out there. I mean, it is a problem. Let's call it, a spade a spade. It is a problem. Now, if they want to contact you, how long do these sessions last? Are they multiple sessions? Does it go on for if you like seeing a shrink? Do you go on for weeks and weeks and weeks, or is it just like a one-time deal?
It's completely up to them. My shortest session that I do is 30 minutes, and that's just the healing time. So I do take a little bit of time before the session and a little bit of time after the session to talk to my clients, help them get comfortable. Obviously, it's an awkward situation. You're going in, you're going to talk about your sex life with me, and you've maybe never even met me. That can be weird. So I like to take a little bit of time, get to know my clients, help them feel comfortable. And then I do 30-minute, 45, 60-minute sessions for the ethereal sexual healing. I have gone as long as 90 minutes. And then if we do group sessions, I also do couples sessions because, working together is just as important as working singularly.
Have you thought about doing online seminars and stuff like that?
I am actually planning on doing some seminars here in the fall to, maybe right after Christmas time. We just moved houses, so trying to get everything settled has been my number one priority, but that is definitely something that has been on my radar and something that has been requested because it is important to understand how these energies work as well. And so when I would do a seminar, I would talk about the divine feminine energy versus the divine masculine energy and how those are incorporated in our body and just get people more comfortable with their own selves. It's okay to, be you. Be in your body, be happy and be grateful for what you've been given. It's like we spend so much time hating ourselves. We wake up in the morning and we look at ourselves in the mirror. I always remember that scene from Mean Girls where they're like, oh, my nail beds suck. Like we find the littlest things on our body to just hate. And that negative energy just takes us down. We'll find one thing, then we'll find 10. And how are you going to be comfortable being that intimate with somebody if you hate your nail beds? Let me just get naked too. Like, I wouldn't want to do that. If I hated myself that much, I would never want to be naked.
Before we wrap things up, I'm going to give you the floor once again, and you give all your information where you can contact you, Whitney Wickham, my longtime close personal friend, and save the world. That's what you're going to do.
I'm going to try. I mean, if I could save the world, I would have already done it, but I'm definitely going to try. That's for sure. But you can find me on Twitter at Whitney Wickham. And you can find me on Instagram as well, Whitney.Wickham. I have got my website, WhitneyWickham.com. You can message me there, or rayoflight-healing.com, which is where I have my blog where I talk about all of these things, ego, trauma, chakra healing. I discuss all of this in full on my website there.
Unbelievable. My longtime close personal friend, Whitney Wickham. I am aroused both physically and spiritually after talking to you for 45 minutes of unbelievable pleasure.
Well, I'm wishing everybody out there an amazing sex experience whenever that comes next.
I can't wait. And I don't even need the blue pill after listening to this conversation.